Good afternoon and welcome to the episode of the Ad Drop Podcast. As we continue our spin through the world of college athletics, I am pleased to be joined by the Director of Athletics of Lesley University, Dan Campagna. Dan, how you doing?
I'm great, Terrance. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Now, here's a weird question for you. As someone also from the state of Connecticut, how much fun did you have at the Big E?
Oh man, I was from Northern Connecticut, so the Big E was definitely a staple of my childhood growing up. Some of the fried foods that they offered were one of a kind.
Exactly. I know you're from Summers. I'm from Hartford, so I remember Summers as being the home of the Lego factory.
Right on the Summers border, yes. Enfield and Summers line, the Lego factory.
Now, what made you take the path going into athletics admin after you finish playing?
Yeah, so for me, it was really based on my experience as a student athlete. I was a Division III student athlete at a small liberal arts college in Boston. Was a multi-sport athlete and just loved every my experience. My coaches, administrators, and mentors at the university really supported my journey. And it was that experience that kind of drove me to this career path. I wanted to have some sort of an impact on student athletes the way that my mentors and leaders did at Emmanuel for me.
One of the most pressing topics in admin right now is the enrollment cliff. Is it something that you have seen up close, or do you still think it's kind of a ways away and there's still time to prepare for it?
Oh, it's here. It's definitely something that smaller schools talk about daily. I know that, at my institution, we have enrollment goals, and it's my job as director to make sure that my coaches are doing their due diligence on the recruiting trail and making sure that we're having visits and leads followed up on. And small schools, one bad cycle could set you under. And this is the time of year when colleges start to announce that they're shutting their doors. And for us, we're very familiar with this. One of our conference peers, last summer announced that they were closing, and that was Eastern Nazarene, and that impacted us in a not in a enrollment way, but in an athletic way because we were the travel partner for Eastern Naz. So when schools were supposed to be coming down to play us in Eastern Naz the same weekend, now they're just playing us, and we play two games, but they only play one. So, a competitive disadvantage. So, we were feeling that. But yeah, the enrollment cliff is here, and I don't think it's going to stop, tomorrow or next year. It's going to be a couple more cycles, and the best of the best will survive. And all of these smaller institutions are positioning themselves to try to be the best of the best.
Strategies have you implemented just throughout your career to enhance the student athlete experience, kind of focusing on the mental health angle and academic success, pretty much general the overall well-being of the student athlete?
Sure. So, before I was an athletic director, I had a background in both coaching and sports information. I think from a coaching perspective, it's really important to develop authentic relationships with your student athletes and showing them that you truly care about them, not just as an asset to the team, but as a valuable member in your community. So I would regularly check in with student athletes during the season and out of the season. From a mental health perspective, I used to do something called Mental Health Mondays. Whenever we were in season, if you wanted to take a Mental Health Monday, you could, so that after a long weekend, you'd probably have a game on a Saturday and a lot of homework on a Sunday. And if you were just drained, if you needed a day off on Monday, just say, "Hey, coach, I need a Mental Health Monday." And that's a philosophy that I think has worked and prolongs the student experience for more success both in the classroom and in competition. At my current institution, we're really trying to get athletics involved in our community. So, making sure our teams go out and show out for campus events that have nothing to do with athletics. So that could be a student speaker, that could be an art exhibit, that could be just something going on campus that doesn't have to do with sports. And I think the return there is that when the community sees our athletes there, they're more apt to support the student athletes in their, field or sport competition.
Now, I know that two of the most important aspects of the AD position are fundraising and alumni engagement. How have you managed to make sure these efforts kind of align with the a university's overall mission?
Yeah, that's a good one that we're constantly working on. I'm relatively new to Lesley. I've been here about a year and a half, and our director of alumni engagement has only been here for about a year as well. So, we're really trying to collaborate and plan some things for the future to go forward so that we can leave a mark and make sure that we're getting, contributions and connecting with that alumni community. But I think in my first year, the biggest thing that I did to try to reconnect and engage my alums is we debuted and opened the Lesley Athletics Hall of Fame. So that's an event where you can connect with, former people from the university and invite not just the recognees, but their former teammates, classmates, coaches, back to campus so that they can see all the changes and renovations that have been going on, and also have them connect with the current students so that there is a doorway and bridge from the past to the present. So that was an important initiative that I think is going to, really help as we continue to grow and move forward. Some ideas that we're working on right now for the near future. I want to do a athletic specific giving campaign. That's something that we haven't done before, and I know that for a lot of larger schools, NESCAC schools, that's just common practice. So that's something that we're going to hopefully roll out this fall for the first time. And then just, alumni newsletters. That's something that we're going to be working on as well, so that we can connect, some of our past links to what's going on right now.
Now, when you accepted a job and you started working at Leslie about a year and a half ago, what was the standard you wanted to set as far as making sure that everything was compliant and there was just a general level of expectations?
Yeah, so this one, my background at Emmanuel, I was the compliance officer over there, I believe for the last 6 or 7 years when I was in my senior assistant director role. So I have a compliance background, and when I came over here, there was a compliance officer, but they shortly left for another position. So I inherited it. I thought temporarily, but I've kind of hung on to it. So as the director, I'm also the compliance officer right now. So, I run a pretty tight ship where we're making sure the checks and balances play out. But I also think an important part of compliance is education. So part of my, mentorship to my coaches is to make sure that they're reading up on the rules as they're constantly evolving and changing. It's an NCAA requirement at the Division III level that all head coaches take the rules test every year. So, that's an initiative that is something that's going on, but I'm making sure that I'm sitting down with the head coaches if they have questions about the rule book, making sure that they know that it's encouraged that if they have or want an interpretation that we put it in. I'd rather them ask ahead of breaking a rule than find out we broke a rule. We can put in something in the RSRO database and just get a clarification, and that's something that younger coaches or coaches without the experience, they might not know about. So as they're onboarding, that's a part of the conversation, making sure that they understand that I am not the bad guy. I want to make sure that we get it right. And the NCAA is not the bad guy. They're looking out for the student athletes and they're making sure that we're doing what's best for them. And as long as the coaches know that and understand that, that's becomes a part of the daily routine here.
How has being a former head coach helped you in your role as an AD as far as having difficult conversations with coaches or athletes?
Yeah, I think some of the most difficult conversations as a coach, it's pretty simple. It's playing time. Why am I not playing? What can I do to get better? And sometimes you have to be just brutally honest and candid and outline a plan that in your heart of hearts might be really tough for that student athlete to achieve, but you've outlined a plan and you've at least given them the opportunity to pave the way for more or further success. And I think the same thing has to be true with coaches. Part of what we've done here over the past year and a half, there's an evaluation system and a goal setting system that's implemented at the university. So, my coaches sit down with me, in the fall when the academic and the new academic year starts, and we outline goals. And I encourage them to set goals both for their sport, and then, big goals like professional goals that have to do, with their growth and advancement as a professional. So, those are things that we check in regularly on. I meet with my coaches in the office with one-on-ones throughout their playing season and when they're on their off season. So that's a part of the conversation and just holding them accountable. If a coach says, this is what I want to do, and then we're having this check-in meeting and we're saying, well, coach, you're falling short to that goal. developing a plan that can at least put them back on track to have a chance at achieving it. Because then at the end of the day, if I am not helping them reach their goals, then I'm not really doing my job here as the director.
Now, in this environment, how do you gauge the success of your department, your athletic department, in a way that is transcends wins and losses?
Good question. And I think when I came in, I was pretty clear that my goals right away are not to win games. I want to develop culture. And by developing culture, the wins will come. And in a year and a half, there's been a little bit of turnover on my staff. And I think some people would see that as, I'm coming down hard. But at the end of the day, it was either people that didn't align with my values or just weren't willing to do the work. So when I had the opportunity to build the staff as it currently sits, I'm bringing people and surrounding my staff currently with folks who align with my vision, want to work hard, and are working towards similar goals. And I think that's just like I said, changing culture. So if I can get coaches that want to build a culture in their own program, then the wins are going to come as well. For example, the longest tenured coach right now at Lesley is the most successful. He's been here for 18 years and he's won, I believe, 10 or 11 championships in his sport. And that's not a surprise because he's built a culture and he's able to recruit with that culture. So it's important to retain your staff to allow them to build that culture. So that's what I'm working on right now. I have a lot of younger and first year coaches right now, and I'm hoping that I can develop them as people and they buy into my vision so that they're able to lay some of that foundation for their programs so that going forward, we have a few more powerhouses. That's the goal. And like I said, you're able to do that, the wins are going to come.
If you were given a month to train for soccer, volleyball, track and field, or baseball, a month each, which one after a month would you be most ready to play?
Woohoo. I think probably soccer. Soccer was always my best sport. I was a goalkeeper, and I think because of that, there's not a ton of training as far as getting in physical fitness shape. I think I could stick between the pipes, and I'd still be able to have, a save percentage somewhere around 750, 800, which was close to what my playing days were. I had a couple of seasons, above 850, but I I always had pretty good eye-hand coordination. So I think give me a month and I'd feel comfortable between the pipes. For baseball, I was a pitcher, so I don't think I would be anywhere near ready to go in a month. Track and field, I was a jumper, and volleyball, I was a cheerleader. I was a walk-on, and my position technically was middle hitter, but I was either in blowout wins or blowout losses. So I was really the motivator on the bench, making sure that the young guys bought into building a culture there, and that was a lot of fun too for me. I saw both sides of it. I was an everyday starter in a couple programs, and then I didn't play a lick in that program, and it was humbling, but it was also really a part of my growth as a leader. Accepting that role and embracing it.
Or right now, like if you just, at home or just away from a job that you are a fan of, that one that you could just sit and just be a fan of it.
Baseball. Yeah, I've always been a huge baseball fan. My office is a little bit of a shrine to the Red Sox in Fenway Park. Right behind me, I got a nice replica of Fenway there. I got some ticket stuff over here. I got probably 6 or 7 Fenway posters up here. So yeah, I'm a huge Red Sox fan. I worked for the Red Sox while I was in college. Through the 2007 season, was there for the World Series run in '07. So it was pretty neat, good time, and that really kind of solidified that I wanted to work in athletics. I thought at the time that professional athletics was the direction I wanted to go, but after doing that for a couple of years and just seeing how competitive and how hard you have to grind to grow in that industry, I kind of went back to my roots in college athletics for my first position and also get my degree. That's when I decided I wanted to go back and get my MBA.
If you were starting a franchise right now and you have David Ortiz in his prime and prime Manny Ramirez, you can have one to start your team to build around. Who would you build around and why?
Great question. Tough question. I think without giving too much thought, I have to pick Big Poppy. Um, I think, the offensive numbers are pretty comparable. Manny probably had a better average over his career, and I think was more of a pure hitter than Big Papi was. But the leadership and the character in the clubhouse for Papi, I think outweighs Manny's outgoing, goofy personality. A great guy to have in the clubhouse for sure. But I think the leadership and the mindset that Big Papi brought to those organizations is something that hard to replicate, especially in this day of professional baseball.
No matter how many more championships the Red Sox win throughout time, how special is that '04 championship still? And if you had to rank it among just sports moments in your life as a fan, where does it rank?
Oh gosh, that was an incredible run, and I was in college down the street from it while it was going on. So uh, uncomparable. I mean, I don't know if I could compare anything to it. It was pretty special. I just remember some of those playoff wins with my soccer teammates. We would run down to Fenway Park. We were less than a mile from there, so we would run down there and just celebrate with the greater Boston community, and it was a special time. Maybe the only thing that could be comparable would be the Patriots Super Bowl with the Malcolm Butler interception. Just because that was, the writing was kind of on the wall, and we thought that we had lost one, and then last minute kind of stole it, so to speak. Thanks, Pete Carroll. But
Last question for you. Where's your favorite place around town to eat when you're out, and what's on your plate?
oof. So I would have, for the last 25 years, I would have said Thornton's Fenway Grill, which was right down the street from Fenway, over on Peterborough Street. And unfortunately, last fall they announced that they were closing their doors. So I
Oh,
was it was really sad because it was my go-to spot before Red Sox games, just as far enough away from the ballpark and off the beaten path where you could still grab a bite and it wasn't packed to the brim. Very affordable, family-run business. My wife and I actually did our rehearsal dinner there before we got married, and just great people. I know they supported a lot of college students in that area with jobs opportunities. So I used to love going to Thornton's, and my go-to order was a club chicken sandwich. So that's what I would go to. So I'll have to find a new game day spot going forward, but that's what it was.
he is the director of athletics for Lesley University, Dan Campagna. Dan, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the AdDrop Podcast.
Thanks, Terrance.